joining. And just to put things in perspective, this is something that we started about 4 years ago, where we engaged the industry in dialogue, tried to bring in the policymakers, the people who are setting the standards, the ICRA, the CRISIL, and so on. And we also had many financiers. Unfortunately, we don't have the bankers sitting with us here. We had them in Hyderabad with us. We'll be having them in Chennai and Bangalore as well. But getting all the stakeholders on one platform and trying to figure out what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and if we're doing something wrong, how can we fix it? Ultimately, the whole effort is to make sure that the consumer gets a good deal, and if the consumer has to get a good deal, there has to be some scientific principles guiding the industry. And it is such a large ticket investment that it's logical that we should be looking at why we're doing certain things in a certain fashion and how we can do it better so that everybody gains. The industry gains, the consumer gains, and the industry moves in a certain direction, everyone pulling together in the same direction. As you know, I mean, Pune is one city that has bucked the trend in the country. We've been doing a quarterly real estate indices, and we find that Pune is probably the only city this time where there has been a positive sentiment as far as the consumer is concerned. Most other cities across the country, the sentiment has been negative and remain negative, and consumers are willing to wait for another 6 to 8 months. So this time we decided to focus on the consumer. What does it take to bring a consumer to the table? And when I come to Pune, what I'm actually trying to figure out is, why is the consumer still active in the market, and what is it that Pune has done right? Maybe the rest of the industry can take a few leaves out of your book. I thought a good way to begin would be to start with some opening remarks. If you it lays the context for the discussion, and then we'll take it forward. Rohit, would you like to start?
So Jayashree, my views in terms of what Pune has done right is we understood in 2007-8, when the previous meltdown happened, that the most important piece.
Please check karna hai. This shouldn't happen.
We understood in 2007-8 that the most important aspect was customers' affordability.
Yeah.
And that is something which Pune has very well understood. As a result, we have not seen runaway price hikes in the Pune market. So it's been by far the most stable, appreciating market over the last 7 or 8 years. And I think that, to my mind, is the single biggest contributor. And of course, there's other reasons, but I think that's the one big thing that stands out as far as Pune is concerned over other markets.
Okay. Shantanu, a residential market does well when there is a commercial driver.
Correct.
Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah. So, Jayashree, in terms of overall residential, when we look at, basically, we need to also understand what are the growth drivers as far as Pune is concerned. So, we have manufacturing, which has been there, which is the backbone as far as Pune is concerned. And with the influx of IT, which happened in early 2000, and that's where the boom started happening, the residential people started moving in, and this has become a cost-plus city today. The kind of fractions that we are seeing on the commercial side in the last especially in the last 3 to 4 years time, it is outperforming every single year. And that's where we are realizing that since there is enough intake in terms of the commercial side, there is an equal amount of demand that is coming to the residential side, because most of the population, either they are intracity population or people who are migrating into Pune for the job work purposes. And this city is basically is acceptable from a long-term point of view in terms of housing point of view, and people tend to love this city. They come here for a short-term period and they'll end up staying for a longer period, and that's also brings in a lot of traction into the residential segment. Again, since the commercial side, when we are looking at manufacturing, ITS, the development centers, the back-end center or the captive centers, it caters to a vast range, which is right from a affordable to a premium to a luxury segment. So again, the takers who are coming in are basically going for all these segments. So the segment that is offered in this particular market ranges from affordable to premium to a luxury segment.
Mr. Parma, when you talk about Pune's market, you find that there's a lot of people coming from other parts of the country, coming here to work, maybe settle down in Pune, but they have a different demand from the housing market, from the city's own, intrinsic demand. How does this impact the traditional Puneite? Do you cater to both segments of the market?
See, if you look 2000 before,
Yeah.
the market was traditional.
Yes.
After that, the engineering engine has come in, the education has gone up, ITES has gone up, IT and ITES. So all those purchasers are totally transparent purchasers.
Yeah.
And that's why Pune has been growing from that perspective. Your demand has increased. And they are all direct consumer.
Yeah.
Our working of builders also was not the investor based. It was totally consumer based. And it is moving in a different direction. More of educated people are the buyers. So the demand also has changed what it was before and what it is now.
Has that demand finished? The traditional
No, demand, I think Pune will be for another 10-15 years, it will be a blowing market.
Okay. And driven
Because
by
all these
both,
three industries are growing.
okay. Driven by new demand as well as traditional demand.
Yes, both.
Okay. Which parts of Pune do you see the demand growing in, or is it in every direction?
Well, there's a lot of development in the major hub, the part of the city, but now because it's exhausted, I see a lot of micro markets emerging, especially the outskirts, areas like say Wagoli and things like that, which are neighboring to big IT hubs like Kharadi, and in the west, say Baner Sus as a pseudo to Hinjewadi. So there is suddenly a lot of development, and those are the markets which are coming up, and the prices, and even development, there's a lot of development happening there. Yeah.
Satish, when it comes to, we had Sudhir with us for other discussions.
Right.
When it comes to ratings, it's
Right.
been a market, most developers, I think we've had about 450 ratings of developers
Yeah.
across the country.
Right.
Do you think a market like Pune
Right.
needs ratings for the consumer to have that kind of trust in the developers?
See, in terms of the project ratings which CRISIL does, fundamentally it's towards the consumers in terms of getting a comfort and the transparency in the delivery schedules and other assessments which we carry out. So which is across. So we do see a lot of demand more on the south side, as compared to say north, because we have a lot of NRI investments and say the literacy rates are more higher. Okay. So in Pune itself, out of our 450 project ratings, like we have done around 25 projects in Pune. So we work with few developers. So yes, the message of building consumers them back. So one of the important element, because the sector is still not very organized, relatively. We have a real estate bill coming up, which has got a lot of elements of agency licensing, developer licensing. The entire fundamental premise being that bringing more transparency and the consumer confidence. So ratings is a process. The project rating specifically, where we cover various elements of sponsor quality and the past track records. So yes, it is important, and we firmly believe that it should give additional comfort to the consumers.
Does that consumer need the rating to give him comfort, or there is a high level of trust in the market as it is?
So market, from a Pune perspective, yes, I mean it is relatively a better market than others. Like CRISIL Research, we believe that it'll have a growth rate of a CAGR of 5% from 15 to 17, 2015 to 17. So we have that outlook. In fact, on the capital value side also, we believe first half of next year, we may see some rise from 1 to 2%. Second half of next year, again, it could be 3 to 5%. And in fact, adding to what Rohit said, so Pune is, I think in the second quarter of this year, you had a lot of affordable and the mid segments, a lot of supply coming from that side, coming back to the requirement of the market.
In fact, that was what I was going to ask you, Rohit. When you talk about real estate markets, let's take Mumbai for example. a lot of stock in the market is in the super premium luxury segment,
Right.
and a lot of demand in the market is in the 20 lakhs to 80 lakhs segment.
Sure.
But there is hardly any stock. It's an underserviced segment. Is that, how does Pune tackle that? Is that true of the Pune market as well?
So I don't think that that is very true in Pune. In the last 2 or 3 years, developers have understood that the luxury end of things are slowing down. In fact, based on our research, what we found is while the simple average of the city in the first half of the year, prices were largely flat. When we do a weighted average, we found that the prices actually had gone down, which essentially means that the number of projects that came up and were launched, and the quantum of supply that was launched below the average market price was much more. So I think clearly we are seeing that developers have understood that there is a need at the lower end of the sticker price as far as consumers are concerned. But look, I think when one goes down to the 20 and even the sub 20 and the real mass demand, I think the bigger challenge is really other costs which that consumer has to bear. I think the challenges for the affordable segment include the cost of commuting. Okay, I've engaged with people who are earning, husband earns 15-20,000, wife earns 15-20,000. They can get that basic loan, but they want to stay in a small rental accommodation which is in the city center, because they said the cost of both of us going out and coming back, that cost is unaffordable. Okay, so solving the affordable housing problem isn't just a developer solution.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a transport, there's an infrastructure issue, there's a commute problem. Land is available at higher prices where road infrastructure is available.
Yeah.
Right? So we need to explore how do you get affordable housing projects where the road is not there today, so the land comes in cheaper and then you bring the road in later.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think this kind of a solution as far as the affordable segment needs to be looked at in a more holistic manner, and this is not a developer-led solution that we can come up with.
Yeah.
So as far as I think we are very well serviced between the 35 and the lakh upward, right? So I don't see any issue with I think that there's a substantial supply in that segment as well. So we've understood, I think developers in Pune have completely understood that at the luxury end of it, there's not that much in terms of demand. And I think the other thing which developers have also realized is that everybody cannot do luxury.
Yes.
Okay, it requires a mindset. Any architect cannot design every kind of product. Just because you're an architect, you can't design every kind of product. Just because you're a developer, you can't build every kind of product.
Or market every kind of.
Or then market every kind of product. And I think finally we are seeing that the consumer is showing some signs of discerning, at least at the luxury end, that okay, this developer has the ability to do luxury housing, and this person is traditionally a mass market producer and therefore cannot do luxury. At least that discerning is starting at the top end of the market. I hope it trickles down the line, where every single consumer who's looking at buying looks at people's track record, looks at what they've been doing so far, and then go forward from there.
See, we've been talking to consumers. We've been telling them, check track records. But when a consumer has to look at the track record of a developer, what should he look at? Would you like to take that one?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is Pune is known for a legacy of builders who've been in the market for 3 to 4 decades now. So I think those are really the reputed builders, and they should look at that kind of legacy that the builder comes with, because that automatically means that he has a certain trust in the market, and his operations, I believe, are more transparent. So those are factors which I think the customer should look at when he's looking at a builder, not the new single project builders who seem to be coming into the market now. Yeah.
Can I just add
Yeah.
to that? Okay, look, there are greed is an inherent nature of the human being. Okay, there are greedy builders and there are greedy consumers. If you're going to be a greedy consumer and go to a developer and say, so-and-so developer is offering it at 5,000, but this guy is offering it me at 4,000, okay? It's not that the guy at 5,000 is ripping you off. Think about it, the person at 4,000, you're going to get something less.
Yeah.
Quality is
So it's either a quality
Yeah.
issue, or you're going to get some short change on spec, or the guy does not have all the approvals. There is some logical reason why that person is going to charge you less. He's going to give you less, make no mistake about it. So that one developer, the fly-by-night operator's greed is only met when he gets a greedy customer wanting to save that last buck. Now he may be greedy, he may be not have the budget. But if you don't have the budget, go for a smaller home. If you don't have the budget, go a little bit further away. But go to somebody who's got a track record. Go to one of their past projects, talk to 3 customers there. Just knock on the door and say, look, I'm thinking of buying with this developer. And just ask simple questions. You don't have to ask about, actually it's one question. Does the developer respond to your issues 1 year after you have taken possession? Simple question, right? If the developer is willing to be responsive after he's taken all your money and he's given you the home that he was to give you, you're in safe hands. Single question. Forget the title, forget the other things. At least ask this one question. People don't do that. You're going to pay 240 EMIs for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay? Spend one EMI, go to a lawyer. Do a title search with one EMI worth of money. People don't do that. And yet, then you get carried away with the Dixie brochure. You buy this home, and then you want to repent over the next 20 years. I'm sorry, consumers have an important role to play in not being ripped off by developers. It's an equal responsibility. You can't just blame a developer.
We've been telling a lot of consumers, why don't you get a bank loan? The bank does some due diligence, and that's one level of search for you. Is that sufficient? Do you think? No?
I don't think that is sufficient, because bank will go only into the aspect of title
Yeah.
and the trustworthy of a consumer, whether he will be able to pay.
Right.
But there are a lot of other aspects, as he has said.
So if I were to try and evolve a checklist, what are the 5 things that a consumer should look for before he buys a house?
Definitely the track record of the builder, what he has done.
Yeah.
Then also talk to the previous customers of that builder,
Yes.
how he is satisfied, not satisfied.
Mhm.
Then one of the most USP, I think, is the leakages.
Yeah.
Definitely he should check into his other 1 or 2 projects. What is
Actually,
his
that's
quality?
the easiest to do. Go check if there are large wet patches. Don't buy.
Very easy, very easy.
It is a lifetime of agony after that.
But the lifestyle of a consumer also is very fast,
Yeah.
and he's, I think, trying to cut his timings, and that is why he comes into the problem.
Okay. And should one invest in real estate? This is something we are getting just so many queries. I'm an investor. I want to invest in property. Is property a good investment category, asset?
Do you want to ask the developer that?
No.
Okay.
Does it give you a good return? Look at what Governor Raghuram Rajan said. You get 2% returns. Yield is roughly around 2 to 3%, and your cost of capital is 9 to 12%. So, is it a viable market? Is it investor friendly?
Look, from my perspective, I think it's completely viable. Couple of reasons I say this. One is real estate. If you look at the last 10 years, real estate has delivered superior returns to the stock market, to gold. So it's you just look at the prices, okay, and you see real estate has outperformed. That's one. The second is if you look at purely yield, I think yield is just a cherry on the top. Ultimately, it's the capital appreciation, which is one of your returns, which only accrues when you sell. Okay, unlike a bond where you're going to get the coupon all the way till the end, and then you just redeem the bond at face value. Okay, as far as real estate is concerned, the capital value also increases. I think you need to factor that in. The other very, very critical aspect as far as real estate is concerned is that it is you can lever the asset, which means you can get a mortgage, you can get a home loan. Okay, if you're getting a home loan, say you're getting a home loan at 10%, okay, and you're going to put in 15% of the money. If your long-term yield is 12%, appreciation plus your rental income is a total of 12%. Okay, 10% is going to go for your interest payment, but you're making 2% extra on that entire 85% of the loan, which means your equity returns exceed 20%. Okay, so I think you have to look at real estate in that manner. Real estate is that kind of an asset. Real estate is a long-term asset. I don't think you can look at real estate as a today to tomorrow. In any case, I think the speculators have all gone out from the industry. If
Will
you're a
they remain out? Today they are not there. But speculators are what has driven this market. And when we said that there was a real estate boom in the country, it was the speculator money that was actually driving the markets. And I don't think anybody complained. It was everyone was making money out of that,
Absolutely.
right? So the speculators are currently off the markets, but it's not that Indian investor doesn't have money to spend. There is plenty of money that people are, and access to cash that people have. They are remaining away from the markets because they're not sure how the markets are performing. And if since yesterday we've sent mailers to our database. They are logged in right now.
Right.
And we've been getting queries on the fly since yesterday. So when I look at the queries, bulk of it is, should I invest in property? And
so my first answer was, should you invest in property on a big level?
Yeah.
Right? From a timing perspective,
yeah,
one thing is clear. It's never possible to time the market to perfection. Whoever does it, it was a one-off. Okay. Now, the other interesting thing is, you're waiting to buy, you're hoping the price comes down.
yeah,
The moment you buy, you're hoping the price goes up.
yes,
Okay. So this is the other thing as far as homes and real estate is concerned.
yes,
If you've decided to buy a home, the trigger is now, look, every single property is unique. Every single property is different, even by way of the same floor plan but on a different floor.
yes,
Okay? If you find the home that suits your needs from a distance, from a location, from your work, from your kids' school distance, okay? The amenities, the facilities, the type of people who are already buying into that development, that developer, there are so many variables. And if you find that yes, the checkboxes are met, okay? Will you find all those checkboxes being met tomorrow? Maybe not.
yeah,
What's more important? If you look at real estate from the long-term point of view, it has proved that it is a appreciating asset in the long run. So look at it from a long-run point of view. If you find your checkboxes are met, go ahead and buy.
But you check all this when you are an end user. Because be emotional when you're an end user. You must know where you want to stay. You must know who you would like your neighbors to be. You would like to know how far your commute is and so on. But if I'm an investor, do the rules change? I'm a pure investor. I'm buying. I'm going to hold it and I'm going to sell. Do the rules change?
The rules pretty much remains the same. It does not change whether you're an investor. See, there are two sets of investors. One is the investor who is doing a bulk buying and
Yeah.
selling. He's doing basically trading.
Yeah.
A second level of investors are who are basically putting their money into their second or a third home, basically.
Yeah.
In that case also you're putting your money and you need to run through the entire checklist basically, and then you need to invest, and the investment has to be on a long-term plan. It can't be a short-term. If you have a long-term horizon wherein you are looking at
What is long-term for
say a 5
property?
to 6 years period,
Okay.
because real estate is again very cyclic in nature. I agree to Rohit in terms of when to time. It's something wherein you need to be there in the market to understand when to time it, because and the moment you will time it at the lowest point, you'll expect that the price has to go up. That's something so that's something which one needs to understand, that if you are there as a long-term player for a 5 to 6 years period, you will definitely make money. And real estate, it's a no-brainer as far as real estate is concerned. Typically when we are looking at this particular market, which is Pune, if you look at it, has always performed. And since it's an end user driven market, 85% of the stock is actually sold to an end user or an end user who is putting money into the second or a third home. That's the beauty about this particular market, and this market has not let anybody down in last. I don't think
2003 is when Pune started performing actually.
Correct.
2003 onwards, it's been steadily performing. Before that, there was a period when Pune was not performing very well. Having said that, I think there are certain fundamentals that are right, which is why it's performing. But when I come into the market as a investor, I'm buying my second home, I'm buying my third home. Do I need to know when to exit my investment? And how do I plan that exit? Because it's a steadily performing market.
See, investors are also of two types.
Yeah,
One, buying a second home or third home,
yeah,
and one, investing with the builder.
yes,
These are also two different types of investors.
okay.
For the consumer investor, I don't think he has to see where I have to live or where not to live, because he has to earn money.
Yeah,
But this has to be a long term, it cannot be a short term.
yeah,
I'll tell you about my story. 40 years back, I was selling at 50 rupees a carpet. There, the rate today is 17,000 rupees built up. That's the appreciation Pune had seen.
Yeah.
And land is the commodity which is never produced.
Yeah.
So you can't expect this to go down in a longer run. Never.
Okay.
And
So is it
inflation,
alright to hold
and in
on to a
inflation is definitely the best inflation for a developing economy is 5%. It's definitely growing to go more than that. This is what I feel.
So if you buy a property, you can hold it for as long as you like, or is it wise to maybe have an exit strategy at 5 years, 7 years, whatever, and then reinvest so that you grow your money faster?
So, I think that is very, very dependent on the way that society is running.
Yeah.
Okay. If the society is running well, it's well maintained, it's well looked after. Okay. There's nothing wrong with staying invested in there. Because when you exit from a property and you go back into the next one, there is an element of tax, there is an element of entry load of service tax, VAT, stamp duty, and that complaint of ours is a huge separate discussion.
Yes.
Right? But that notwithstanding, if the society is run well,
Yeah.
okay, there's nothing wrong with staying for the long term.
Okay.
But if the society is not maintained, okay, they're fighting amongst themselves. It's difficult for people to come in. It's not a cohesive community. Okay, get out. The sooner you can get out, get out.
Okay.
That is by far the most. Okay, so then there'll be a rising tide which will either lift everything. But that society is fighting with the builder, they're fighting amongst themselves, okay? They're not painting the building, and there's all of this kind of stuff. If nobody wants to move in, you're not going to be able to move out.
Yeah.
So I think the long-term hold, the important aspect is how is that community performing.
Okay.
And I think investors, I've found that investors tend to play a very, very silent role when it comes to the maintenance and the matters of the society.
Right.
And I think that's a wrong approach. You may be anywhere in the country, you may be anywhere in the world. But if you see people are taking decisions, you're in some Google group somewhere, in some group somewhere, people need to step up, voice their opinion and not say, oh, it doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah.
Because it makes the biggest difference to the investor if the society is not running well. So I think that's a very important aspect to determine whether you want to be in for the long run or not.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that we get, and let me just read out a few queries, you'll understand what consumers are asking. There is somebody who says, why should I invest in Chakan? Now that we told him to invest, but he wants to know, is Chakan a good place for investment? What percentage of returns will I get year on year? Reasons behind that, how will it grow? Now, this is one kind of thing. The other one is, would it be preferable to buy a 2 BHK flat in terms of convenience and cost since I'm working in Magarpata city? Now, you see what the consumer is asking is very logically, should I buy in the peripheral areas? There is a core city, there is a suburban localities and there is a peripheral areas. Peripheral areas come at a much lower entry cost than suburban or core city areas.
Yes.
So, should you, when you're choosing to buy in the peripheral areas, how do you choose which locality to buy in?
See, I feel if he's a consumer where he wants to work and stay,
Right.
don't think of appreciation. Think of your surrounding requirements.
Okay.
If you are buying number 2 or 3, think of the highways on which it will be developing,
Yeah.
which side the city is growing, and then invest. But think of, as your last topic you were discussing, if a building is maintained nicely, the appreciation is much more. So think of those builders who are taking care for the next 2-3 years in maintaining that well and then handing over. So the foundation is laid,
Okay.
that definitely appreciates more.
Okay. Now, if I'm a Bombay, if I live in Bombay and I'm looking at Pune as an investment, what are the things that I should look for when I look at investing? I don't know the city much. So, seriously, I will be looking at which are the areas where I'll get best appreciation. That's my only criterion. How would I start looking for this?
I think basically what an investor should look at is the pace of the infrastructure development in that area. Like what is coming around the residential development in terms of IT hubs, say malls, multiplexes, what is coming around there, because that essentially drives the residential market also. You know, the more development there is, the more people want to stay there. It's connected to everything. So I think that is definitely a factor he should look at when he's investing.
Okay.
Look, just going back to the previous question as well as this, I think it's connected. Ultimately, the reason why prices in the outskirts are lower is because the land price is lower.
Yeah.
Okay. The construction cost difference is 15-20% up or down.
Yeah.
Okay. So the single biggest factor that determines the lower price is the cost of land. The reason why the land cost is lower is because infrastructure is less.
Yeah.
And I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about civic infrastructure, I'm talking about social infrastructure, I'm talking about healthcare infrastructure and all of it. So when that is less, the land price is less. Okay. In India, there's no question that the infrastructure does come in. People move in, infrastructure follows. We've seen this happen. But the question of when it comes in is always, you know, that's the joker in the pack.
Yeah.
So being in the outskirts, there is a greater appreciation. It comes with a slightly greater risk. Okay. Of when that return will actually kick in. There's also the aspect in the outskirts of a far greater supply.
Yeah.
So I think it depends on what is the appetite for risk that the investor actually has. If you want safe downtown, if you've got the money, because those properties are
Yes.
far more expensive.
Yes.
If you've got that money, you want a safe investment, you don't want the risk of the long term, you want greater liquidity, well then be in a city center. If you don't mind, say it doesn't matter if 4 years becomes 6 years, okay, DP roads they say is happening now, you issue a tender now, it will get done 4 years later. I don't mind. Water will eventually come in. I don't mind waiting. If that horizon is not a pressure for you, okay, go to the outskirts, but know this, that there will be greater competition even when it comes to sell, because there's much more supply in that area.
Right.
So it's really appetite for investor driven. I don't think you can say for everybody this is a solution that will work for you. Because sub-markets are and micro markets are doing different, have different growth drivers.
Right.
Just as cities have different growth drivers, sub-markets have different growth drivers. So where there is an IT hub coming up, you're going to see price appreciation there. Where there is a new bridge coming up, you're going to see, or some road infrastructure coming up, you're going to see appreciation there. In the long run, the rising tide will lift everything. If you want to beat that, then you need to do some research, do some homework, understand that micro market.
Right.
But if you're not willing to put in that time and you want to take the today's click, click, click internet world, read something on Twitter and you want to try and go out and buy a home, then at least understand this: greater risk, greater return, greater rewards in the outskirts, longer duration, lesser risk but lesser return in the inner cities.
But when you look at a place like Chakan and so on, where we are saying that manufacturing is going to lift that market, that's probably why a lot of people have started asking about Chakan. Now, what kind of research should that person do? It's some of the things that he should look at. He's probably thinking of a new economic driver there, right? Now, there may be more stock coming up. There may be, but it's a newly developing area. So the appetite for that stock is also higher, right?
Absolutely. So drive around there. Take a day, go there and look around. Please understand, when you look around and you see that there's all vacant land all around, okay, is this going to rise and do well in a longer medium term? I think so. But then have that appetite to wait for longer.
Right.
Okay. And for God's sake, if you're going into a developing area of that sort and you're going to have an 8-year, 7-year, 10-year horizon, okay, at least in this situation, go with a developer who's been around for 20 years, so you know he's going to be for another 10.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise, you're going to end up in a situation where some guy bought some land, okay, decided to turn builder, wants to make money on one project, makes money, you've got bought into it, and you're going to have zero liquidity at the end of 8 years. You're going to have to sell at a discount.
Right.
So that's just
In fact, I've got at least 3 or 4 queries, and this is a Pune specific query, so I'm assuming you'll be able to comment on this. That Gram Panchayat land is, should I buy in areas that are that have Gram Panchayat, because they apparently you're allowed only 2 floors, but developers are selling a 4th floor. Should I buy because it looks very nice? I have had at least 4 to 5 queries since yesterday. Is this a problem in the Pune market, and if so, what would you care to just elaborate on this?
My response on this is don't get greedy. Okay, it might look very nice on a brochure. Is it legal? Do your homework. Marketing is all about a super sexy brochure.
Yeah.
Okay, we have phenomenal agencies, great quality printing, 3D technologies that can make the ugliest person look like he's got 6-pack abs and all of that. We do the same thing with buildings. Right? So your building can have the same kind of look. Do the homework, do your research, okay? Don't get carried away by some glitzy sales talk.
How much of Gram Panchayat development is happening in the Pune market? For the volume of queries?
It's not a lot.
Legally speaking, Gram Panchayat has no authority permissions for the building. It's
Okay.
the collector who gives it. So
Okay.
it is must see whether plans are passed.
Okay, okay.
So you have your corporation and then you have your town plan.
Yeah.
So you need to see that all the approvals, all the permissions and everything is there. The norms which are followed are pretty much the same norms which are followed in the corporation. So there is nothing which is abnormal in terms of.
So why do they come up with this query? It's only in Pune I see these queries coming. Gram Panchayat property, should I buy? Why is this? Clearly there is a lot of Gram Panchayat sanctions coming up in the market, otherwise people would not ask. So what is it that is making people ask this?
I have absolutely no idea. The
Okay.
quantum of supply is not even that much.
Okay.
Right? In the Gram Panchayat areas, there's not that much of supply. So really, I'm surprised that you've got a disproportionate number of queries about that. I don't know whether the other developers would have any kind of.
You know, it's like the A Khata, B Khata in Bangalore. I get so many queries there. Similarly, I get Gram Panchayat in Pune. And on an average, every week we get at least 2 to 3 queries on this Gram Panchayat land.
This like this, okay. If you talk to doctors, okay, they get the most irritated with the new internet patients. Because every patient who goes to a doctor today is a self-proclaimed doctor because he looked it up on the net. Okay? Stop being a doctor. Okay? Get an expert, get an architect, get a legal guy, get a tax guy who's qualified in that area.
Yeah.
Okay? Reading it up online and saying now I'm a professional real estate investor. What can I say?
You're saying something.
We have some journalists who have joined us, and can I request you to move up to the table? Maybe you would like to join the discussions. Come. You know, we thought
They're more used to asking the questions.
you can. I mean, just ask, join in the discussion. Whatever you want, you can. Feel free to jump in. Now, one of the things that baffles me is that the world economy slowed down. Salaries have not gone up significantly over the last 2 years. Consumer sentiment has remained down globally and in India. Stock markets have gone up and down, and there have been vagaries of the stock market. All this has impacted consumer sentiment across the country. Why? What is different about the Pune consumer that he continues to consume?
Real estate.
Real
Is your
estate.
question.
Real estate.
So-
I only ask real estate.
So look, so the thing is, the way I look at it, as far as the Pune consumer and why they're still buying, is because I think they see value. Okay, while on one hand, headline, firstly, the price didn't skyrocket, so there isn't a fall to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, the second I think is that
Why didn't it? I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but why didn't Pune's
price rise go up?
Yeah, because in
because
all
I think-
markets there was somebody who was pushing the prices up all the time.
No,
right?
I think as far as Pune is concerned, one of the really important things is at a CRIDAI level,
Yeah.
we do a half-yearly discussion on the quantum of supply that's available in the market.
Okay.
Okay, and therefore people are having knowledge and information helps decision making. Okay, in a situation where everybody's data is all closed and nobody knows what's going on,
Yeah.
then you get into this frenzy of price hikes. He's rising it, so I'm raising it, so you're raising it. But when there's transparency of data and information available, it brings sanity into that market. I think Pune has seen an element of data and transparency in data, which has led to the prices not going up indiscriminately. This, along with what I said earlier, is that developers have understood that affordability is the key. So I think those are the two main reasons why prices really haven't moved up in that manner.
So do you course correct as, for instance, if you have a half yearly, assessment, and you see that there is a certain category of demand that is where you are undersupplied, and a certain category where you're oversupplied, do you course correct as an industry?
So we can't course correct as an industry because we're the most fragmented industry.
Yes.
CREDAI Pune has, I think, some 400 now members. That you can't get 400 people into a room and try and fix prices, okay, or decide demand or supply, because each individual has his own borrowing, has his own risks, has his own challenges, so you can't really come together for that. But if you put the data out transparently, okay, people tend to understand.
Business.
Right?
It's basically the fact which is there on ground. I think pretty much all the developers are aware about what is happening, who is buying, where it is in terms of the traction, which particular location the traction is happening, at what particular price point the traction is happening. I think that information is it's available, it's freely available amongst all the developers today.
So we do that, we put that information out. So I think that's one of the reasons why the prices didn't skyrocket. The other aspect, I think, is overall prices. As far as Pune is concerned, now we're at a 5,000 average across from the most prime all the way in the Pune metropolitan region. That's a reasonably good average price, okay? Which means you're starting at 3,500 rupees a square foot. So I think there's an affordability spectrum. So you're catering across the affordability spectrum. I think that's the second important fact. I think the consumers today are smart enough to realize, and those who have realized have been buying, that where's the room to really drop prices? If you actually look at the ready reckoner, which in some cases the ready reckoner prices are higher than the flat prices, and you look at the land component, okay, and you deduct the land component and you look at the cost of construction as per the ready reckoner, this is all government data. If you look at that government data, you'll come to a conclusion that the room to maneuver is really not that much. So I think people have realized that there isn't too much fall to happen. Those who are waiting are just hoping. They're listening to people saying correction aega, but I think most people have understood that, even being flat as far as prices are concerned is in fact a correction, because inflation is increasing their affordability. So in real terms, a lot of people have understood this. So I think these are some of the key reasons. And the last one is, developers do not, and in many ways cannot, lower their sticker prices, because you've got previous customers who bought, they get unhappy. This is just reality. Okay, so if you go across and you sit down with a developer, they're offering schemes today. There are schemes. For anybody to say no, there are not, you're really lucky is all I can say. Okay, so you're offering schemes, you're doing marketing promotions, and therefore it's a good time to buy, because in real terms prices have come down. Developers are offering schemes, so actually in absolute terms also prices have corrected to an extent. Okay, so if you look at all of that, a lot of people have understood this, and the few who have not are waiting on the sidelines, and I think it's a matter of time before they all come back into the market.
So negotiations go up to what level? How much discounting happens at negotiated levels?
Right now, I would say that as per our recent report, we're looking at about an 80 to 100 rupees is what the consumer comes with, that kind of a power that, this much so I have to bargain, and because they have more power now than they used to have. Earlier, I think all the power was in the developers' hands, and the bargaining power. But now they know there is so much option out there that they have that ability to bring the price down, and they know the developer will come down to that price also, most of them. So yeah, that is, I think, approximately what.
So I look at it slightly differently. I think you can get as much as 400, 500 rupees off a square foot. And I can see you saying, oh my God, you're saying this thing. Thousands of people. But let's be clear. Let's be clear.
She'll meet you outside after that.
I'll tell you guys now.
She's
right?
taking 3,500 as the base.
I'll tell you now where this comes from. Okay? In an odd case, if there is a desperation, because the developer needs to make some payments, there's something else which is due. Okay? And you're going to strike this deal where you're going to like squeeze out that kind of money. Okay? You're getting a great deal. It comes with a great amount of risk.
Okay.
Be careful about those kind of deals. Somebody saying you buy a flat today and in 10 years from now I'll give you your money back and your flat. Okay? You may get one, you may get none.
Yeah.
So if a deal looks too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. So I think the rationale, and because I think what ends up happening is people talk. Arey, I went to so and so, that developer's in big trouble, he's giving 300 rupees off, he's giving 400 rupees off. There's a lot of talk about this. But I think consumers need to be smart. I think what you're talking about is really the smart consumer who understands that, yeah, things have corrected to an extent, 2%, 3%, you can get that as a discount. So if it's a 5,000 rupee product, you may get 100, you may get 150 rupees off a square foot. That's by and large what happens. But for the few who have a problem, a cash flow problem, he's going to take your money, he's going to go and give it to his bank. That money is not going back into your project to add more square feet into your development. It's a risk. You're going to get it 20% below market. Will you get it? Is a question you need to ask yourself. So just going for pure discounts is just a bad idea.
Okay.
So the range is there. And we have to acknowledge that the range is there and explain to people that, look, this is why the range exists.
Yeah.
I know some builders who doesn't have any range. So they are not absolutely disturbed by the cash flow. And they are selling the best in today's market, I feel.
Okay.
So there is that as well.
Yeah.
So would you say that these people are, my God, they're not in touch with the market? Certainly not.
Yeah.
They're in touch with the market, they've done their business plans well, and they're doing a great job. Does that mean a customer shouldn't go to them? Certainly not. Go and assess the value of what you're getting. Don't go just by discount.
Yeah. Absolutely. You guys want to jump in? You want to ask a couple of questions? No?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would like to know what are the markets, like you said there are different kinds of markets in the Pune city, the city area or the peripherals. Which markets would be a better investment opportunity?
You want to take that?
See, it depends upon, as Rohit said, it depends upon your investment appetite, your risk appetite basically. And in peripheral locations, again, when you're looking at, there are a number of markets. When you're looking at Chakan as one market, or different markets are there. So it's all about, depends upon what is your risk appetite, and basis that you can pick up this. But if you're asking specifically in terms of which are these markets, on the northern side, on the where one is Chakan, one is your Chikle is there. So these are all market. These are all investment destinations.
See, it's like this. If you have, you have to look at investment, why you're investing there, because there is a return that is possible. Right. That would normally be because you have an economic driver there. It could either be IT, ITES, or manufacturing. Manufacturing is in early stages. It's not the kind of boom that you see when you look at IT. So if you look at Hinjewadi, you look at Kharadi and so on, these are strong economic drivers, and then you look at a radius around it. But actually it would be good to tell them which are if you take Kharadi as a, these are hubs, and it's a hub and a spoke. So right next to the hub, the values are higher. Little further away from the hub, the values are a little lower. So that's where you invest in early stages so that you get a return.
Okay.
But if
I have one point to make.
Yes.
When an investor comes in to invest, I think he should see his strengths and weaknesses first before he goes to buy anything. And to combat those, then think of builder, that what are my strengths and weaknesses, and then go into that area. But definitely the surrounding areas are developing at a much faster pace as far as the investment is concerned.
So you talked about Kharadi, right?
Yeah.
And we have some experience there. So just as a disclaimer, we do a lot of development in Kharadi. But here's what we've seen. We have a project which we've just handed over. It's very close to the Eon IT Park. we are seeing 1 and 2 bedroom apartments there on a resale at 6,500 rupees a square foot. Okay, but so it's surprising that you have a 2 bedroom at such a high price for Kharadi. Anybody who has said, tell this to them, are you serious? But you can walk to work. Okay, those apartments are, we've got 3 developments right close by. Our occupancy levels in those projects, some which we've handed over even 4 years ago, are at 93-94%. So people are renting those homes. So the demand for those homes are high because there is work around there. Now, somebody may say, hey, you know what, I want to work close by, I save time, I'm willing to pay the premium. So they pay the premium. But if you want to be close to that hub, but you say my budget is not 6,500, my budget is 4,500, you may need to go to the outer end of Wagholi. So you'll travel 4 kilometers away, but that is the driver. And as that development further increases, then the commute for those people, and that causes a rise to happen. So I think the location also depends on what your appetite is. But currently drivers, so if you're saying, okay, I want to look at an investment of a much smaller amount, then you look at saying, okay, where will smaller, less expensive apartments be available? So once I say Chakan, Talegaon, these areas where there's lots of factories coming up. So there's going to be blue collar workers. Blue collar worker home demand is at a far lower price point. Where are those areas where there are those factories coming up? So they talk about Foxconn coming in, right? How many tens or hundreds of thousands of people are they looking at employing here? Okay, those people are all going to need homes. There the sticker price of investment is going to be much less. That person wants a 1 bedroom. He wants a 1 bedroom of 500 square feet. He wants a 1 bedroom at 3,000 rupees a square foot. So he wants something which is going to be a 15 lakh price point. If you have an investment option of 15 lakh and you want to rent that out, well, fine. That's where you go.
But your rental return will also be commensurate to.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. So it's really economic driver driven in that sense, and infrastructure.
And the same Kharadi that Rohit is talking about today, 5 years ago when he took me to, 5 years or maybe a little longer than that, when we went to see Kharadi, it was probably a little more than the Boondocks, but the Eon IT Park was coming up, and if you are able to spot that there is a large IT development coming up and there is already people who have taken up the space and they are fitting it out, then you have to actually fit the pieces and see whether I want to buy here. Those days probably you were not spending so much to buy in Kharadi, but your wait was longer. You would have had to wait for 3 to 4 years. Before your returns start flowing in.
Absolutely.
So it's actually how well it's a science, and if you can crack the code, you make money.
The same project which I'm talking about at 6,500 today, 3 years ago, we've handed it over 6-8 months ago. 3 years ago the prices there were 4,000 a square foot. So we've seen an over 50% increase in a 3-year period. That's outperformed the market. So you have to look at a development, you have to look at the drivers around it, you have to look at the infrastructure around it. When we launched the project, the access roads were just dirt. Today there's concrete roads, there's tar roads, that's happened. You know, the development is done, it's ready, people have jobs in the area. So it's all of this, if you have to spot this to actually be able to outperform that market. A lot of people had belief and faith that this is going to happen. It paid off for them, right? Some people didn't have that faith, they went elsewhere. Their investment may have paid off for them. So you have to, I think the single message is suspend your belief in what the builder says and verify it for yourself to a consumer. Verify what's being told to you.
Just go there, spend a day out there, and then just move around, speak to people, what is happening, what kind of a development is anticipated, what is happening. You'll get a lot of information on ground. So just spend a day. You're putting your hard-earned money out there as investment, and if you're not spending a day out there in that particular location, it's never going to work out for you.
What are the sorry.
So if you want to invest your money, invest your little time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very right.
Very right.
Very right. Because you're going to be spending the next 20 years working to pay for that.
I think Neha wants to
I
answer.
have a question, sir. Since you're talking about that we should invest around the IT corridor and to get the better rental returns, but we also know the fact that being Mumbai close by, there is a kind of demand. It's coming for the holiday homes as well. People do consider Pune. Do you think that is actually one of the huge target audience for the
So I think Mumbai, the Mumbai market is certainly a market to look at for developers in Pune. Some of them are looking at it as, I don't think very many of them really look at it as holiday homes anymore. It's purely as an investment. You want to get some rental returns. You're staying in a rental property in Mumbai in a half decent location. You can't afford to buy in that location. You want to say, okay, I don't want to get left behind. Okay, because my investment, if I put into the stock market or into gold, it isn't appreciating as much as real estate. So people are saying, let's block some asset into real estate. Okay, I've got this much. The place to invest, therefore, is should I look at Pune? That's what's driving a lot of investment into Pune. That you're not, that your money is not losing value. Where 5 years later, if you want to invest in Mumbai and you've got some savings, you can at least say, okay, at least the Pune investment kept up with the market. That money appreciated. I can use that as my down payment for a Mumbai property. So that is what's driving Pune. I don't think that there's too. Is Pune really a holiday destination?
For those especially, you know,
Not now.
home away from home, you know, since people who already have their homes in Bombay and see the Bombay is a very crowded place, who would like to have a home in Pune where they can, you know, enjoy the space, open space.
So here are a couple of things. This is why people are looking at buying. One is you already have your home. You want to invest something for your child. You can't buy another one in Mumbai. So you say, okay, let's put something into Pune. The other outskirt areas are also from the upcountry Maharashtra, where people are saying, okay, now we have money. Okay, let's look at buying something in a Pune, because our kids will go there to study. Right? So let's buy a home. When the kid is 2 years, 3 years later, they'll go to Pune to study. So we should have a home there. So that is the people from the outside who are looking at Pune from that perspective.
Even from administrative management, from an investment perspective, something which is closer to where you stay is what drives you, to go there rather than going outside of Maharashtra.
Right, absolutely, very true.
I think all the people in Maharashtra are definitely an investor in Pune.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
You can't be an investor in Mumbai anyway.
Yes.
So you would, so you would look at Pune. Yeah.
A lot of redevelopment projects are going on in the western and the southern part of the city. That is Kothur, Karvenagar and Satara Road, Thakar Nagar Park. How you look at the city as a redevelopment point of view?
So I think redevelopment is natural, right? It is going to happen. It's a matter of time when projects come up for redevelopment. I'll give you an example in our own case. We have bought back properties which we sold and we've redeveloped it ourselves. We've seen those cycles. Having been in the industry as long as we have.
After how many years?
So in one case it was about 25 years. Right? So we've been doing this, the family's been doing this now for 45 years. So we've seen these cycles. I think it's a matter of time. Your building gets outdated. The buildings which are coming up for redevelopment today, some of them are 4-storied buildings which didn't have an elevator. Right? The water tanks, the gardens, all the facilities, the infrastructure, the building has aged. The staircases used to be narrower, and those people have done well. They're living in the city center. They don't want to move out, so they don't want to sell. And there is an economic opportunity, because the FSI norms then versus the FSI norms today, you can develop much more today on the same land than you could 20 years ago and 30 years ago and certainly 40 years ago.
So you buy back your own property, redevelop it and give
So
it
in
back?
some cases, so very few people do that, but for the most part the redevelopment model is the society comes forward and says, look, we've got 50 flats in here. We know that based on today's rules you can build 100. Build us our same 50 in one building and you take one building of another 50. Right? So it's a win-win, and then you negotiate the terms of saying, okay, the developer will provide alternative accommodation or just give you rent for your 2-3 years that it takes us to redevelop, and so on and so forth. So that.
But it is a huge win-win here, right?
It is a win-win. I think it is.
But in fact, it's supposed the way, as Mr. Parmar said, you can't produce land. So how do you support the population or the urbanization?
In fact, that's one reason why we had called Mr. Prakash Thakur. I wish he had come. One of the things that today we are interested in knowing, if you look at the 98 cities that were picked up for smart cities, 96 of them are brownfield development, right? You're talking about smartening up your cities. So as people who are actually building the city, do you people also feel the excitement around the Smart Cities campaign, or is there prospects, or is it just a load of political?
I think I am a redeveloper for last 40 years.
Okay.
But the new builders, I don't think redevelopment is a ball game unless they totally change their strategy. So it's a different mindset of a builder while dealing with the old people.
So how do you, why don't you talk about this a little more, because I think this is important in the context of today's India. You're talking about cities that have to think of redevelopment, and a city can't redevelop. You can pick up localities, you can pick up developments and start redeveloping, but can a city transform itself overnight? I don't think so. But it would be nice to know what...
I don't think so. The total redevelopment will be transformed in another 10 years in Pune.
Yeah.
Pune is a big old city.
Yeah.
And a lot of second generation, third generation are also staying. But now the demand has changed.
Okay.
The type of houses has changed. The redevelopment is bound to come. But because of the attitude of the people, sometimes even one fellow gets against, everything gets stopped.
Yeah.
So it definitely takes time for a de-development of a property.
Okay.
People having less investment, having a good appetite as far as patience is concerned, for them it's a good opportunity.
Okay.
See, redevelopment has its trade-offs. You had an old building, you had less facilities, you had less amenities, you're getting much more of that.
Yeah.
So you had a, you didn't have an elevator, today you have an elevator, just as a very, very basic
Yeah.
item, right? It comes at a cost.
Yeah.
The cost is your common area maintenance is going to go up, right? You were paying much less earlier, you're going to pay much more today, okay? Your density is going to increase. So you had 50 apartments, maybe it was on 2 acres earlier, now you're going to have 100 apartments on the same 2 acres.
Yeah.
So the density is going to increase. You're going to get new people coming in into your, what used to be your cocoon for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
So I think these are trade-offs which people need to reconcile with. And some people are, often enough at an age you say, I don't want to rent a place for 3 years and then now move back, and I don't know people who are going to be around. I know my neighbors, I've lived here all my life, yeah, do this after me. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So I think this is, it's a slow process.
It's slow.
Some people are, some societies are ready earlier, some take longer to get ready. It's a matter of time when it all has to happen, because ultimately the buildings do age and they do decay. After aging for a while, they start decaying.
What is the ideal time when, if a society was smart and decided to redevelop, what is that ideal time when you should actually think of redeveloping?
It's
You mean
very,
whole
very
the city or the individual?
No, individual
property?
society.
Societies or maybe localities. I mean, it's like this. We saw this happening in some places in Delhi, where the locality was 35, 40 years old. Not only the building, the infrastructure, the water lines, the sewer lines, everything needs a upgrade. It's a good time to get together and upgrade, because you have your transformers breaking down, you have water pipelines bursting often, and it is not just a building that is going to be redeveloped.
I feel so. If government is also very keen,
Yes.
then the infrastructure has to change faster to make redevelopment faster.
Okay.
If infrastructure is not going to change in those old localities, I think it will be slower.
At some time Pune's metro will take off, right? When we've seen that whichever city the metro comes, it kind of opens up the entrails of the city. There are localities that are decrepit, decaying, but are phenomenally well connected by the metro, and it comes back, it bounces back into demand. And if till now the cities have not been taking cognizance of that. In Delhi, there's a place called Uttam Nagar. It was a resettlement colony at best. The metro came, one long stretch of Uttam Nagar, very well connected. The city did not plan, but the city planned for itself, right? And it started redeveloping.
Right.
It was ad hoc redevelopment, but it was there. Now, this is the kind of thing, do you get with the authorities, are the authorities responsive? When you are going in for redevelopment, do you try and get overall infrastructure overhauled? Does that happen?
I don't think it's possible to do that.
Okay.
Because ultimately, look, the societies which were, today you see large developments, a 20-acre development, a 30-acre development, and so on, where the scale is that large. More of the buildings which were done in the 70s, 60s, 70s, now maybe even 80s, which are coming up for redevelopment,
Yeah.
more of those were on smaller properties.
Plots.
Right? So a 2-acre plot, they are much more in the city center. You're busy dealing with the society. You're busy dealing with your building. Right?
You don't want to go to the
Where are you going to go?
authorities.
And you know what? There's no mechanism.
Yeah.
In India, there is no mechanism for a partnership. And in a way, I think it's a good thing because of the whole corruption angle and all of that, right? But there is no mechanism to say, hey, I'm doing this development here, right? I'm willing to contribute this much for doing the following 10 things outside, and that will help my project develop. There isn't any hope or scope of that.
But if you ask me, I think this is the way forward, and in the next 10 years, I'll be surprised if it doesn't happen. You have a phenomenally successful new development, but if it was linked straight to the metro, you found that it would its value would go up. Why wouldn't you say that I would repair the street around me? I'll invest that much more so that I get better
Oh,
returns.
developers are willing to do it. There isn't a formalized mechanism. If I want to do it, I have to go and grease the palms of 20 different people. Okay, I think grease the palms is the wrong word. I think I need to deliver briefcases of money to them. Okay, to try and get those connections done. Okay, and then something works out, and then there is RTI, and then somebody will come and point a finger that there was some shady deal done here. This is the real India. This is what's going on. Okay, we don't like to talk about it, and you know we
Oh, I
talk
love
in
to
hush,
talk
hush,
about it.
hush, hush tone.
All of us like to talk
But
about
this is the
it.
reality of it. This is the reality of it. I've talked publicly. There is an element of political and bureaucratic terrorism which is taking place in the real estate sector today.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is a reality. Okay? Unless and until that changes, these kind of things are not going to change.
Yeah.
So we are hopeful that it will change in time, but I don't know, maybe it will happen sometime, maybe it won't, but this is our reality today.
Yeah.
I have one point
Yeah.
to make. For making a city smart, the administration has to be smarter.
You know, you probably have a much smarter administration than a lot of cities around the
Yes,
country.
yes, today we do.
I deal
we
with
do.
cities around the country, and Pune administration seems a lot smarter than many others.
I think today we are in that unique position where we have the will at the center. I think we have the will at the state.
Yes.
I think we have the
Will at
bureaucracy
the
at the
city
city
level
level.
also.
We have that will at the city level. So I think I am personally, and this is answering your earlier question, I think that today I'm very hopeful and I'm extremely optimistic that we will see the outcome. I think a year ago when they talked about smart cities, I was skeptical. I think the way they have, there's some very smart people thinking about this entire project. I think getting a competition going, which is galvanized cities to come together, is phenomenal. I think the way our municipal commissioner has galvanized people, you know, there's websites, there's comments, there's, you know, people are getting engaged and involved.
Yes.
I think that approach of engaging and taking people along is one of the very integral parts of delivering that really good solution. So I think I'm very optimistic and I'm very hopeful of the smart cities initiative certainly paying off as far as Pune is concerned. I think we will start seeing a tremendous outcome. And look, I think smart cities is not just about, it's about drainage and infrastructure and connectivity and some amount of that, but I think it's also using technology at a very, very different level. It's about traffic data, which today Google is providing you.
Yes.
Okay, how does that traffic data go through the city? Okay, and so that you plan your traffic lights using that. Today there's no that connect between
Connected.
Google Maps
Yes.
and the city doesn't exist,
Yes.
right? How do you do that where your traffic lights then change? The timings of the traffic lights are changing depending on time of day and traffic patterns. I think that's where smartness is, when you use all the technology solutions around you. And this is just one example.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that Pune is, we have people who are thinking in this direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's the first step, and I'm personally very enthused about the entire concept. I think I'm looking forward to things changing very soon.
See, so far we've been talking about Rara Pune. It is a good city and we have been talking about that. What are the 5 big problems that you think need to be fixed if the city is to move to the next level?
Need to be
Fixed. You know, I'm sure you have your share of problems. Just pick out those 5 things that you think, if fixed, your real estate industry would move to the next level.
Getting early sanctions, I think,
Okay.
for development, that will really help.
Yeah. How long does it take currently?
I think 2 years at least. Yeah.
There are a lot of environmental issues where we have to go differently. Why can't be a part of DP? DP rules
Yeah, yeah.
can definitely solve those problems as far as city is concerned.
Okay. Water? Is water a problem anywhere in the city?
I think that, look, civic infrastructure follows. It's a matter of time it comes in.
Yeah.
I remember when we were doing projects in Viman Nagar, and in fact this was even before I joined the business. Viman Nagar used to be called an area with an extremely acute water problem. Okay, today people say there is a water issue in Viman Nagar, and at the same time Viman Nagar is virtually fully developed.
Yeah.
So in a 30-year period, in an area which had an extremely acute water problem, water shortage, today has a minor water issue, and it has also developed fully. So just that is an example where there were no roads in Viman Nagar.
Yeah.
Okay, people have come in, drainage systems have come in, electricity has come in, roads have come in, water supply has come in. So I think infrastructure follows. I think if you talk about the real estate sector, the one thing which I would do is just eliminate discretion and discretionary powers from every single officer in this state. There's no discretion. If you're wrong, you will be prosecuted. Not prosecuted at my discretion. You will be prosecuted. Do what the law says. We'll follow the legal process and it'll happen. But not that, oh, you know what? I feel like squeezing you for 5 lakhs today, so if you pay me 5 lakhs, I may or may not prosecute you. Okay? Get rid of that. Stop the discretion of saying we will issue the TDR depending on our pace at which we want to issue TDR. Okay? Stop the discretion of saying, oh, you know what, it's my discretion, I'll send your file to legal to get a legal opinion. 4 months are gone. Okay? Stop the discretion of a local corporator coming in and writing a letter to the building inspector and suddenly your plan is stuck for another 6 months. Stop this discretion.
Yeah.
If my plan goes in, if you don't give me a real solid reason as to why you're not clearing it in time, okay, you will be suspended. You will lose your job. Okay? Eliminate that discretion. Things will change overnight. Things will change overnight. There is no accountability. In Pune, we have a fine, okay, which you have to pay to the municipal corporation if people occupy their homes before obtaining the OC.
Yeah.
Okay? Logically, it's a fair thing, right? Get your OC, then occupy. Do you know what the fine is? The fine for a 2-bedroom apartment works out to about 4 to 5 lakhs of rupees. In other parts of Maharashtra, it's 5,000 to 10,000. Now look at the situation. Who gives you the OC? The municipal corporation. Who doesn't have money? The municipal corporation. If they delay your OC, who's going to get more money? The municipal corporation. Something's really wrong with this situation.
Yes, absolutely.
And this is being done, and then there is discretion where we say we will delay your OC. Okay, now come and pay me, because I've got 200, 400, 600 customers waiting for their occupancy certificate, paying rent, paying pre-EMIs, banging on my door, wanting the occupancy certificate, and at the same time, I've got an officer who says, no, we don't have time today. We'll come tomorrow. We will give you a rejection letter, frivolous rejection letter. Okay? In the realm of the absurd. Then what happens? I'm forced because my customer wants their OC. They want their occupation, so I give it to them. Bang. 5 crore rupee fine, please pay it. Or we will stop your next project and we will not give you the next sanction, and all of this is going on. This is a reality in Pune today. Get rid of it, stop it. Because it is hurting the city. It is hurting development. It is hurting the revenue of the municipal corporation. This is today's reality.
Until I get occupation certificate on the day, I don't have water. I have to apply for water after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are things which are broken,
Yeah.
right? And therefore I think that if you just eliminate discretion, you have no discretion whether to accept my application or not. There's no discretion. If I give me an application, you have to accept it. Okay? You have no discretion to send it to here or there or there. You have to put reasons. They have to be justifiable, valid reasons. Do it. I'm not saying anybody should, allow a shortcut. I'm not saying anybody should be granted special favors. Don't do it. Don't allow that. Okay? We used to pay something called speed money. You know what that was? That just do my project a little bit faster, speed it up, I'll pay you a little bit of money. You know what we are forced to pay today? We are forced to pay not to slow down money. Right? Speed money has become not to slow down money. This is the reality of what's happening today.
Okay.
You want to change the city, you want to change the entire development of the city, eliminate discretion. Rules laid down, follow it. Or we will sack you, or we will fine you, and if the developer does anything wrong, we will fine you, we will sack you, we will blacklist you. No problem. Make it a level playing field. Because here's the other thing. Illegal construction is by far the biggest enemy of the legal, reputed developer. I buy the same land as a guy who's doing illegal construction. He doesn't take approval, so he finishes his project faster, so he makes more money. Okay? He doesn't take approval, he'll build 3 floors more. He makes more money. He can go out and buy new land, compete against me. He can afford to pay more for the same land. Okay? So it is by far, it is a poison pill for the reputed developers. So we shouldn't be allowing this.
So what volume of development goes in that category?
I don't think anybody has the statistics. Because that's the whole beauty about illegal construction, right? We don't have the statistics. And that's the reality of it.
But what percentage of development in Pune today would be non-organized, unorganized, individual?
Look at the reports. High Court is saying demolish illegal construction, right? People are saying no, don't demolish it. You see buildings coming crashing down because they were illegally built, right? Even if it's 10%, that's 10% too many.
Yeah.
If it's 1%, it's 1% too many. But I don't. I mean, we do research and all of that, but I don't have statistics on that.
I think the biggest part we have not touched. 40% of the city in Pune today is slum.
Yeah.
And we want to make it smart.
Yeah. So I was having an interesting. Sorry.
And
sorry.
the most illegal constructions going on is in slum areas. And nobody can break it, nobody can do any notice, nothing can be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we were having I was discussing this with a friend just yesterday. We are, as a country, we're the only place where we can create our own new natural resources. And slums are a new natural resource. Because then you'll call in a builder and you'll do a slum redevelopment and create wealth from somewhere where there was no wealth. Right? You'll allow for FSI, you'll do this. So we allow a slum to happen. Then we call in the builders, then we do slum redevelopment. So we've created a natural resource when there was none. Just on a lighter note, we were having a chat yesterday.
The reason of slums coming up is, I think government has never thought of the immigration that is coming into the cities.
Social housing.
Social
We don't have
housing.
social
They have
housing
never
in
thought
India.
of it. And today also there is no law. If a small person comes, earns 10,000, 15,000, where will he stay?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I like Mr. Suresh, Mr. V. Suresh, who was the hardcore CMD. He says for every luxury housing, there has to be 2 mid-income housing, 3 LIG housing, and 4 social housing. That is the pyramid, and I believe that it is a working model.
It is.
Because you need so many people to service this entire market, but social housing is something that
You have in the airline industry, right? Some airports where they need to serve mandatory few of the airlines.
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
To connect better connectivity and
Yeah. So this is what is missing. One more thing. What about garbage? Is that a problem in the city? How do you because I've seen this happening in places like Trivandrum. If you have it's a city that is very close to the sea, right? So if you have a development, you have to actually have your own means of sorting out your garbage. You
Yeah.
get.
No, look, I think as far as Pune is concerned, there is vermiculture is mandatory. Okay. And therefore segregation is also mandatory. If you're doing larger developments which require environment approval, then you have to do a lot more, right? So organic waste, composters and so on. Those are largely provided, certainly in the larger developments. The city is getting by with managing the garbage situation, but I think that the problem is the NIMBY problem, which is not in my backyard. Nobody wants the dumping in their backyard.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is a resistance happening from there. So I think a longer term solution as to where it's going to get dumped has to be figured out, has to be sorted out. And the city is going to have to buy that land for the landfills. It has to belong to the city. It has to be large enough for it to not affect anybody else, where it's nobody's backyard where they're dumping the waste. And until and unless that is done, we're going to have a problem for the long run. Or then you say, yes, segregation, you have to have vermiculture pits and you have to do all of that, so you minimize your the garbage that's actually going to go out. But a lot of that has already happened.
Okay.
In that sense, I think Pune has taken a lead. I think we've got, there was some statistic recently where we've got the maximum number of green buildings. Right? So in that sense, I think Pune has done well. The environment regulations on one hand are a problem for development, but on the other hand do solve some of these issues. So if one looks at it in a balanced manner, there is an issue, it has been addressed, it's not completely solved, but I think we are ahead of the curve of resolving issues.
But I think
How about
still
use
lot
of
of those who
solar
are
energy?
generating,
Sorry.
we need them to be made more smarter by
I'm sorry,
segregation.
I missed what you said.
The old city,
Oh.
you know, we have to make all those citizens more smarter by segregation and
Yes.
teach them.
Yeah.
Basically, at the source, we need to basically.
So just speaking about this, how about the use of solar energy within this space, you know?
So a municipal corporation has made it mandatory for solar water heating. So you're required to put in solar water heating. If I'm not mistaken, the new environment norms, which are being circulated for discussion currently, are talking about a certain percentage of your total connected load has to be put in on that campus or around, I'm not sure about around, but has to be put in on that campus of renewable energy. So if my requirement is 100 kilowatt, I have to have 1 kilowatt on renewable energy. So I think
that's mandatory.
it's the new norms
that's
which
a
are being
proposal,
discussed.
okay, yeah.
The proposal talks about that being made mandatory. I think it's good. But I think consumers are now understanding the benefits of it. But there is a cost that comes with it. Consumers are not willing to pay that cost. When customers say, you know what, for the environment, for the long term, I'm willing to pay that extra 50 bucks. Okay, developers will be able to do a lot more. Otherwise, it has to be mandated. And if it's mandated, then you do it. And that's what we're currently doing.
But Pune is not, the intensity of solar is not so high as in maybe Gurgaon, Rajasthan and so on.
No, in
Which
fact,
is,
in fact, it's pretty high. The survey report basically talks about Pune city is 320 days you get the enough
Sunlight.
heat, enough sunlight.
so it's a solar city?
Yes, it is.
Look, my house, I have a house, not an apartment, I would live, but all my bathrooms are solar water heating, and we don't have a problem at all. And I like hot water, so it's not that you manage with cold; it doesn't matter.
But same, I think my house is 25 years before
Yeah.
solar,
Solar.
totally 100%.
Solar.
In fact, quite a few. I would say almost 60 to 70% of the societies.
The new developments.
New developments in the last 10 years, they all have solar. And the latest, what I've heard is basically now you can actually, but the issue of cost is basically the how to store it.
Yeah.
So directly you basically from the solar cells, basically you put it onto the grid and you get a discounting
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's the electricity.
Electricity
That's the
part of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So that's a direct.
That's
In fact, many societies are now talking about basically converting their rooftops into solar. This thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Grids,
And
basically.
getting
Getting the
discounted.
incentive.
I think all our new projects are being done with the solar.
Okay, we are actually almost at the end of our discussion. So if there's anything that you would like to ask, feel free to do so. But otherwise, I think I want to ask you: do you guys do anything wrong? Because Pune seems to get its solar piece right. You get your development piece right. You've got your steady real estate markets, and probably other cities are going to say, why Pune? Why does it do everything right?
No, I don't think we do everything right. I think relative to others, there are other cities where if an investor wants to go, they make much more money because of the volatility. So those who caught that think that that's right. There are clearly strengths. I think every city has its own strength. It depends what you're buying with what perspective. So I don't think, personally speaking, I don't think that I would subscribe to that school of thought that we do everything right. I think everybody does their own things right, as developers, as cities, as a grid-eye. Different cities have different strengths. But I certainly think that one strength that we have, relatively speaking, as a developer community is there is a tremendous amount of camaraderie, openness, transparency, sharing, support, which happens at an industry level. And I think that certainly does well for a city. and it's visible.
Yeah.
It's visible.
And for the consumers who are watching us, I think one of the things is that you get steady returns. You don't get very high peak returns as in volatile cities, but you do get steady returns. So if you're looking at Pune as a place to invest in, and we've got a whole pile of them asking, should I invest in this locality, that locality? Do your research, find your properties, and don't go for unjustifiable returns.
I think that's very crucial. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes, actually.
People just need to realize that. Nobody is giving money to you from out of their pockets,
Yeah.
right? I'll just tell you one quick anecdote. So I'm responsible in CREDAI for the grievance cell, and we've sat and resolved many issues for many people. And at the end of it, when I have a conversation with them and I say, didn't anybody tell you, don't trust a builder? Right? Because you have a problem, right?
Yeah.
And he overpromised something or the other. What didn't anybody tell you? And invariably the answer is, people told me that, but the brochure looked so good. He promised me that he'll do it. So this is the reality. Just verify.
Are projects delayed in Pune? Across the country, we see that
Yes.
projects have been delayed.
Yes.
How? What kind of delays do you have?
No, I think. I don't think all would be. You can say
Yeah.
all are delayed.
Yeah.
Very few are on time.
Yeah.
Okay. Some are 3 months. Some are 6 months. And you go up to 12 months.
12
I think
months.
is the
I think it's a very
broad band is
reasonable
that.
time frame in terms of we need to understand what is a delay. If it
Yeah.
is statutory related, permissions related,
Yeah.
then it's a different matter altogether. But realistically, as far as construction delays are concerned, it is not more than I don't think it's more than 3 to 6 months time.
Why-
I disagree with one thing. There is no such thing as a reasonable delay. Okay, a delay is a delay.
No, that I agree. Delay is a delay.
Well, why should the consumer be saying, hey, you know what, it's reasonable to accept it? Let's,
But it's not necessarily the developer's fault. Why?
Why
I
are
don't-
the delays?
So
Why
right,
are the
so-
delays?
It is because
So-
of these sanctions and permissions
So-
that you need
No,
to
but
get
then-
in place
right.
before. I mean, the builders who are actually going by the rules, you need these permissions in place to construct, and till you don't get it, that's why that delay is happening.
And here's what's going to happen.
No, but the definition of delay would be what was promised.
Yeah.
So if they planned that the approval would take 1 year, which was rightfully the correct number, then it's fine. But if they were too aggressive, then again.
But here's the thing, with the approvals, technically you're not supposed to start selling and construction before you have your approvals.
Right.
Right? So assuming that we've already got that. The problem is not that. The problem is at your plinth checking time. Okay? Like I said earlier, the kind of issues that are taking place are crazy. Your occupancy certificate, it's crazy. Anywhere along the way, anything you can be hauled up for. Right? But the other thing as far as delays are concerned is what I think is going to happen with the real estate regulatory bill is you're going to have to put your date. Okay? You're going to have to put down what is the compensation that you're going to pay. Make no mistake, this will cause prices to go up. Here's why. Ultimately, there is a risk of delay. Okay? There is a cost to do it on time. Then whatever you have to pay, it doesn't matter because my pain for delay is too much.
Yeah.
Today the customer is bearing that pain. Okay? So his price is X. If you tell the developer, that pain is going to be transferred to you. I have to factor in the cost of that pain. Then whether I say, okay, it doesn't matter if I have to pay 10 bucks more a square foot to bring my tile in on my due date, I'll pay more. Okay? It doesn't matter if the cement companies are raising their rates by 40%, okay? I have no choice. I'm going to have to pay it because the pain at that end is going to be too much. So when I do my budgeting, instead of a 250 rupees a square foot cost of cement, I'll put 400 because suddenly that risk of everything is going to be transferred onto me. Today the consumer is bearing that risk. Right? So ultimately it's a risk reward.
But that's again a chicken and egg story, So ultimately it'll goes back to the administration,
No, it's got nothing to do with the administration. It is administration of what?
No, in terms of again on the government side,
No. Look, price of cement, for example. Okay. Now we know cement is cyclical through the year. Okay. And cement companies as businesses are opportunistic. Okay. So either I can say it's coming to that time when I think that demand is very high, so let's slow things down a little bit. Instead of buying it at 400 bucks, it was 300 last week, it's gone to 400. Let's slow it down. Okay. And doesn't matter, we'll pay something it'll delay things a little bit. Sand, for example. Okay, the sand guys get together and they say, look, we want an increase of 30%, right? And if you have no choice, you succumb and you pay. Or the industry gets together and says, okay, let's negotiate with them and say, look, 30% is not right, it's not fair. Diesel has gone up so much, transport costs have gone up so much, etc., etc. Your royalties have gone up so much, so we'll give you a 10%. Now, this time, it's a 2-month process to arrive at this. During that 2 months, do you hold back or do you carry on the construction? So it's to do with that. It's availability of labor. Okay. So talking about the labor, there used to be a time when the labor is available. Today, because of this Narega and all of that, they used to go home for the holiday. They'd come back in the 7 days or the 10 days. Today it becomes 30. Why? Because he'll collect that 15 days of unemployment amount there and then come back 30 days later. Labor is short. What do? You have to pay more. So all these costs, where the developer would kind of plan the construction to say, okay, doesn't matter, this will cost us a month, that may cost us a month, that may add another 6 weeks.
So ultimately the risk is the consumer's risk.
Today.
Either it is in terms of the delay, you factor in the delay, or you pay more.
That's right.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. So if you transfer that risk, today the consumer bears the risk.
Yeah.
Right? If you transfer that risk to the developer, and the developer is going to bear that cost, he's not bearing it out of his pocket. Because today, make no mistake, the consumer is already bearing that cost.
Yes.
Okay. He's bearing the cost by way of rent and pre-EMI.
Yes.
But if you say, sir, you will not bear the cost of rent and pre-EMI, okay, somebody else has to bear that cost.
Yeah.
Okay. And that cost then will come back to the developer and it will translate into your sticker price. It won't translate into rent and EMIs.
Yeah. Which means that
It
you will get your
changes.
project on time,
Yes.
but you'll have to pay
You
an
have to pay a
enhanced
little
cost.
bit more. So your total cost, rent, EMI and price of flat will stay unchanged.
Yeah.
But the heading will move, there won't be rent EMI,
Exactly.
it'll move in rent, there won't be rent pre-EMI, it'll move in into your sticker price.
Right.
That's what will happen. I mean, we've done the assessments. In, scientifically you do risk assessment of your project. This is one of the risks, this is the cost, it will translate. It's a matter of time. Look at it
And
this
is
way.
it good for the industry? Maybe
It's
it
very
is.
good for the
It is.
industry. It's very good for the
And
industry.
it's good for the consumer also. You don't have to wait for. We are talking about delays of up to 7 to 12 years in the North Indian market. It's half a lifetime for a young person. And you've seen projects that were delivered 11 years late. 5 years, the project hasn't. Patta nahi hila hai. Come on. That kind of risk, probably paying an enhanced amount is
worth it.
better. Worth it.
It's worth
It's
it.
much better.
Look, the other thing is if a developer, our industry is extremely forgiving. Okay, you look at the country is very forgiving. You look at the West. Okay, you don't have the money, the foreclosure takes place, the property is moved away, it's gone, you've lost your equity. Simple, right? Out here, there's no such nothing. I'll wait, I'll pause my project for 3 years, I'll restart it. The customers will come and buy. What is this? And then the same developer will launch a new project
And I buy
and
that.
customers
They're
will
also-
buy. we are very forgiving. We are very forgiving as a nation.
But to my mind, that regulatory bill is essential. Because somewhere there has to be sanity. And about 15 years ago, property was not such a hot item of investment. Today the volume of you're talking about 1,50,000 crores being disbursed, right? And if 1,50,000 crores worth of formal financing is happening, it is a huge business. And along with the business comes rules, and there are no rules. Across the board, there are no rules. Somewhere it has to be. And maybe you're in a better city. There are cities that are far worse. But ultimately, the consumer out there, I would say at least 50% of them are buying a house to stay in. And if they are buying a house to stay in, they deserve to get that house when they want to stay in it, and not when someone else decides that now I will give you a house. So
I'm not going to let you have the last word on this one, for sure.
let me finish.
Sure.
But it is an over-regulated industry. It is regulated in the wrong ways. If the regulation can be in the right ways, it would help. And I think you need regulation. Also, you need to ease off some regulations. Like you said, the occupancy certificate. Is that regulation? No, it's absurd. But because of those absurdities, there is a certain other kind of regulation that's coming in. Maybe it's not the best, but somewhere the consumer needs a say.
I feel rightly regulated this industry, the cost will come down at least 20%.
I agree with you, sir. I actually agree with you. Most of the costs are because we've assumed that delays have to be
Delays
part
are
of the
part of it.
system, and we'll forgive the delays and we'll enhance the price.
Yeah. So I think we talked about this whole risk thing, and they will turn on and regulate the developers, which is what the current bill is doing. But let's understand one thing. It is not in the interest of a developer to delay a project.
I agree with you.
Okay? My overheads, my running costs are just way too high.
Cost of funds, yeah.
Cost of funds, all of that is not in the developer's interest by and large. Okay? So that's one reality. In the days when you've got 20-30% appreciation, you're borrowing it at 20, you're appreciating at 30, you're making money just by delaying and sleeping, those days are largely behind us now. Okay? So I think that's one thing to recognize. Now you're going to turn around and say, give the customer an end date. Okay?
Yeah.
And we will prosecute you if you don't. But and therefore we'll factor in all the sand, cement, steel, all of that. But that's one part of what causes delay.
But what about the
What about the approval process?
Yes, yes.
So now what am I going to do? I'm going to have to factor in a whole lot of money, which is now going to need to be paid to the officials to give me what I need on time. Or you have to bring them in, regulate them.
Yeah.
Why do we not regulate them?
No, I have been championing regulation of approvals authorities across the country. I think bulk of the delays are because you have between 8 months to 36 months delay across cities, and if that can be streamlined, after that regulation makes a lot more sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By all means, please regulate. The industry is such that anybody who owns a piece of land can become a builder. Right? It's possible. But give him a set of guidelines and say you cannot actually plunder a customer.
Yeah.
I'd use stronger words, but you cannot make the customer's life a living hell. Okay? And we will come after you by all means. But look, it's a sad state of affairs today when we talk about the entire regulatory environment. And you want to bring in a new regulation. Okay, and the entire approval process is just completely out of it.
That doesn't make sense.
That is it.
You're just not going to solve any problem.
No, you won't.
You're not solving it.
Even after buying plot, it takes almost 2 years to start the construction.
2 if you're lucky.
Yes.
2 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Look, the environment rules. Okay, what's wrong with saying these are the rules you have to follow. Transparently? Okay. Please follow this, come to us, you'll get your stuff. Single window, done. No need for a hearing. Okay? The development control rules at one stage would say road width X, building height Y, permitted. You go for environment, no, we won't give you that height. So why? Because we don't think that the fire department has the ability to have the access there and so on. Okay. So let me give you an example. Okay, I'll just take a minute on this. We have a project in Goa. So since we're talking in Pune, I can speak a little bit openly about this. We went for our EC. We went for our EC. Okay, this project is downtown, city center. The environment team, the people who are asking us the questions there is a garbage dump next door. City is garbage dump. They're already moving it. So there is a smell for that. It's in the city center, so they're in the process of moving it. We are asked, what is your mitigation plan for the smell? And our response was, we need to answer for the environment degradation that we would cause. Right? That guy is doing something on the environment which is negative. You should be asking them. You're asking me what I am going to do about his smell. But the guidelines are not laid down. You can't give blanket, do what you feel like powers. It comes back to discretion.
Yeah.
You can't give blanket discretionary power. The environment needs protection. The consumer needs protection. Right?
You're saying the developer needs protection.
You said it.
Well, on that note, I think we should close. If any of you have any more questions to ask, please feel free. The reason why we invited you is that we had a good panel out here, so if you would like to ask anything. Yeah? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining
Thank you,
us.
everybody.
To mitigate all the problems of a consumer, I wrote a book called How to Buy a House. And HarperCollins is our publisher. We'd love to give you a copy.
I believe you're going to Crossword to launch them.
Crossword, their Go Down got burned down.
Yes, yes.
Your books were in that?
Many of my books were there. So we've postponed that to in November. I'll come back in November.
Nice.
And actually, like Rohit said, it's not that people don't know. People choose to make these mistakes. But
take shortcuts.
Take shortcuts. But one of the things that what we've done is, we've answered over 50,000 queries on the site as of now. We kind of bucketed them, first created a little guide of FAQs, if you please. We found that the consumers were using that and using it well. So then we put some more thought into it and said, how can you figure out what not to do? So then picked up things that others have done before you, and figure out that you're not alone in doing foolish things or the wrong things, or sometimes the right things. For instance, my safety is not your safety. If you're a single woman staying in a city, you would look for a gated community which is safe and so on. But when you're an older person, you're selling something, going away to another city, you want a different kind of safety. But safety, it's both safety, right? But we try to capture the nuances of real estate buying and put it together in a book, and it's out there.
Very nice.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've got lunch served. Do join us
When you guys launching the channel?
soon.